she basically dominated that guy. So there is something that he wants us to learn from this story. And just straight off the bat, like what we can see is that you have to be persistent, even if a situation seems intimidating and you're told no or you're threatened. As long as this is something that needs to happen, you just need to like wait for it and not give in to fear. And when something threatens you, or just realize that you have power, your desire or your need for something is so great that you can overpower whatever it is that is intimidating you for you to get something that is yours, especially if it's rightfully yours. I mean, a lot of these principles can be abused, right? But I feel like I am taking everything that I'm reading in the mindset of like, you're a good person. You're not trying to scam anybody. You're not trying to intimidate or instill fear in anybody. And like, you have a good heart and you're coming from a good place. That is what I'm taking this message as. But you can definitely see that these principles, as long as they're applied by whomever, good or bad, that they can work. But I'm not using this principle, personally myself, for ill. But you can see in history that also people who have ill intent have used a lot of these principles that are used in this book. So as they say, fortune has no bias, I think. Anyways, let's move on. I think that sometimes those are the sad things about this world, about this life, in that good and bad do exist, and it's not only the good people who are favored, also bad people are favored, as long as they have like key ingredients to psychology and access to knowledge. And that's why, as sometimes good people, you can't afford to be naive. It costs you to have no knowledge of certain things. And it doesn't mean exposing yourself to evil, it just means exposing yourself to knowledge so that you can become wise. And wisdom, as Miles Monroe used to say, it used to be, wisdom is the proper application of knowledge. Yeah, let's keep on moving on. But anyway, so he keeps on talking about this little girl in the next subtitle called the Strange Power of a Child. And I don't remember what part that. Oh yes, I remember a part that I like. So from this whole experience that he talks about this little girl having a particular impact on this guy, Mr. Darby, and Mr. Darby is the gold mine nephew. And he said, every time a prospect tried to bow me out without buying, I saw that child standing there in the old mill, her eyes big, glaring in defiance, and I said to myself, I've got to make this sale. The better portion of all sales I have made were made after people had said no. He recalled too his mistake in having stopped only 3 feet from gold, but he said that experience was a blessing in disguise. It taught me to keep on keeping on, no matter how hard the going may be, a lesson I needed to learn before I could succeed in anything. So we've covered this, and we've said how it's important for us to take whatever lessons we have learned from our failures, because our failures our failures don't lack purpose. There is purpose in our failures if we care to analyze and to think and go back and not dwell on the pain. I think a lot of the time why we don't like to think about our failures is that we have an emotional attachment, a negative emotional attachment to it, and that's pain. And it's not to say that, oh, the pain doesn't matter. The pain does matter. It could have had devastating effects on our lives. But if we can remove ourselves and be objective and look at things like practically, sometimes we need to look at our failures and assess them. And if we can't do it, perhaps have an expert or somebody who isn't emotionally connected or doesn't have that painful emotional experience to assess the situation. And by the way, when I talk about an expert, I mean an expert, not somebody who is a naysayer. And if you do have like a naysayer or somebody who is like, I told you, or you should have done this, or you should have done this, move on to somebody. If that person is somebody who you even don't know that you can explain the situation to and can give you objective advice on what your situation was and what the mistake was, and so that they can help you move on and learn from your things, because not all of us are talented in that area. And like I said, all of us have our special talents. And for a lot of people, if you didn't know, like a lot of analyzers, I don't know what you call people who work in analytics, are highly sought after in the different fields of the various industries that they are in, and they're highly paid. It's because this information of assessment is very, very, very important. Anyways, so a line that I liked is this one. Mr. Darby's experiences were commonplace and simple enough, yet they held the answer to his destiny in life. Therefore, they are as important to him as life itself. He profited by these two dramatic experiences because he analyzed them and found the lesson they taught. So a lot of us don't take time, I think, to analyze a lot of things in our lives for many reasons. Sometimes it can be because we are escaping the situation, like escaping the memory, the painful memory. Sometimes it's just because like we're lazy and we neglect. We don't see any value in. Okay, that's not because of the laziness. The laziness sometimes it could come from you just being somebody who wants to get things done and doesn't really look into details. And I think if you are afflicted in that area, if that is just not your strong suit, find somebody whose strong suit is analyzing things. It could be somebody who's in your life that can be like a sober sounding board, or if you don't have that in your life, it could be a professional that you could pay, or perhaps consult with, if they can do that for free for you, because there are people within our network who can do that for free and help you analyze your problems. Or it can also be that we are negligent sometimes to do like a checkup on our progress. And that's not what I talk about being lazy. You always have to, like, as much as you progress, you also have to like do checkups. You're either too lazy to do it yourself or too lazy to hire somebody that can do it for you. And I don't say this I don't see this critically in a way to like break you down, but sometimes we just have to be constructively critical so that we can not condemn people, but so that we can learn and be better. The next subtitle is "One Sound Idea is All You Need." I've forgotten this subtitle and what it was about, but a line that I like is when you begin to think and grow rich, you will observe that riches begin with a state of mind with definiteness of purpose with little or no hard work. You and every person ought to be interested in knowing how to acquire that state of mind which will attract riches. I spent 25 years in research because I too wanted to know how wealthy men become that way. So riches begin with a state of mind, and I think this is something that I mentioned earlier in this episode, that it's all a state of mind, right? But it's not just like what word am I trying to use? It's not just wishful thinking. It is a determined, it is a purposeful, it is a very studious state of mind. You know, for a lot of us, we don't have that discipline, and for a lot of others of us, we have never seen anything. This can be a foreign concept to us. I'll give you like an example by what I mean. Some of us haven't grown up around people who are entrepreneurial. Some of us haven't grown up with people who have strong will in terms of business and in terms of finances and making money, or even pursuing an idea or pursuing a dream. Some of us have to be the people who break that chain, the first in our family lineage to break the tradition of whatever it is, of poverty, of not being well educated, of living from paycheck to paycheck, of being in debt. Whatever you have, name it, right? A lot of us don't have that discipline. Some of us who are even well educated haven't been taught anything to do with finance, anything to do with entrepreneurship, anything to do with business management, anything like, I think you understand where I'm going with this, right? So we have to start reading, and that's the joy of reading. We have to talk to people, right? Perhaps if we don't have access to people, at least you have access to books. If you don't like reading, I'm sorry, but I will tell you, like, some of the best pieces of information is in books. And you will have to discipline yourself to start reading so that you can learn and absorb these gems. If you're not yet there, you can start by watching YouTube videos. You can start watching financial channels, and not just like whatever it is that is your guilty pleasure to watch on YouTube, right? So that's some of the ways that you have to now start disciplining yourself and stop waiting for other people to do the work for you. You have to start doing the work for yourself in order to change your state of mind, because it's so easy to say, my upbringing, my environment didn't allow for me, like I don't have that power, I don't have those skills, I don't have those tools. There are other people who have will and determination and a drive so high that even though they lack the things that we lack, they have that mental state of being that can push them through. They have that advantage over the other people who aren't as strong-willed. And for those people, heed the advice that I had given before. Pick up a book and start changing your financial diet. And how do we change our financial diet? Is talking to people who are strong-willed, aligning ourselves with people who can help you. And sometimes these people will just be like, hey, just tag along, follow me, listen to this, and hang in there. They can be like, oh, I recommend this book, oh, I recommend this person, go talk to them, I recommend this channel, I recommend this podcast, do this, I recommend this seminar, whatever. So that is something that I liked. And something that was so important, like they're saying, is that you have to do research. And this guy did the personal research of following these men. He had the opportunity to network and learn from them like firsthand. And for us who can't have that rich experience of networking, we have at least books, I will say. So research, read as much as possible, absorb all that information. And I think that is whatever your area is. And also trying, just putting yourself in the zone, disciplining yourself to do something and follow through with it until the end. So that's what I loved. Another thing that I loved in this chapter was success comes to those who become success conscious. Failure comes to those who indifferently allow themselves to become failure conscious. The object of this book is to help all who seek it to learn the art of changing their minds from failure consciousness to success consciousness. Another weakness found in altogether too many people is the habit of measuring everything and everyone by their own impressions and beliefs. Let me read that again. Another weakness found in altogether too many people is their habit of measuring everything and everyone by their own impressions and beliefs. Some persons who read this will believe that they cannot think and grow rich because their thought habits have been steeped in poverty, want, misery, failure, and defeat. Then he goes on to talk about this Chinese person who came to be educated in American ways, and then scratch that. I'm not even gonna talk about that. But anyways, actually let me talk about that. So he says, these unfortunate people remind me of a prominent Chinese who came to America to be educated in American ways. He attended the University of Chicago. One day, President Harper met this young Oriental on the campus, stopped to chat with him for a few minutes, and asked what had impressed him as being the most noticeable characteristic of the American people. Why, the student explained, the queer slant of your eyes. Your eyes are off slant. What do we say about the Chinese? We refuse to believe that which we do not understand. We foolishly believe that our own limitations are the proper measure of limitations. Sure, the other fellows are off slant because they are not the same as our own. So let me go back. Let's rewind that. We foolishly believe that our own limitations are the proper measure of limitations. So try and break that cycle. You're like, oh, I can't because, or you think super rich people are super rich because, yes, they don't have the same limitations as you. They have, they don't have and list whatever things that are limiting you, right? You think geniuses are able to be geniuses because they're not as limited as you. And the thing is, one, you don't know their backstory. Two, even if you do know their backstory, that's their backstory. Backstories are meant to inspire or inform. They're not meant to imprison you. Yeah. And 2, you're not taking the time to actually look within yourself and actively search. Sometimes you need to call yourself out sometimes and be like, listen, enough is enough. All this complaining, all this griping, all this whatever is getting you nowhere. How about you try something different and see if that gets you somewhere? Just a thought. And that, as much as I'm saying this, these are things that I do to myself as well. I'm like, oh yeah, this person has this and this situation. Like, I'll give an example. I'm in the diaspora. Certain things like additional help is not available to me, so I have to literally do everything myself. And sometimes I look at people who are from my home country and I'm like, oh yeah, these guys have help, they have a support system, they have a network, they can carve out time to do XYZ for themselves, like to have like a side business or whatever. And I can look at myself and say, oh, I don't have this support system, so I don't have enough time or energy to put into something else that will perhaps better myself financially or better myself like spiritually or mentally. And it's like, that's a limitation for me. So I'm just like, yeah. But then now what can I do? I can carve out time, like an hour, like have less hours of sleep so that I can achieve whatever it is that I need to achieve for myself, you see. And then somebody else can be like, oh, somebody in my home country can be like, oh, but Natasha has access to this and this and this. She's not tied down by the taboos that we have. Okay, not by taboos, but let me say social taboos. Like, a social taboo meaning like venturing into something like doing an online book club. Like, this is just like a hobby to some people that would be back in Kenya, but like, let's say for me, this could be like an entrepreneurial endeavor. And they can be like, oh yeah, my social situation is like this and that, and so I can't do it, I can't go for it. But then there are people in my home country who are breaking those social taboos and are breaking off those things that were limiting or are still limiting, and they're becoming trailblazers in this whole new industry. Like, take case in point being YouTube, right? A lot of people across the world, YouTube was a joke, right? It's like, these people are lazy. These people don't want to have like a regular 9 to 5. They don't want to do. It was just like, whatever. You're just a glorified entertainer, like, It's like, what are you even trying to do? And look at like how people are being influencers all around the world, and at the same time they're doing what they love, and at the same time they're making money. And it wasn't easy to overcome all these social limitations, you see. That's an example. Anyways, I don't know if that made sense to you guys, but to me it made sense. Another subtitle was The Impossible Ford V8 motor. It talks about how, like, Henry Ford was just like, you know what? Let's switch up this engine. Let's try something, blah, blah, blah. Let's try putting the V8 in one block. And like all his engineers are just like, listen, this can't be done. It can't be done. It's impossible. And just like, okay. I'll just give you guys a little more time. Whatever you need, whatever it takes, make it happen. And then he comes back again sometime later, I think 6 months later, and they're like, no, it can't be done. And it's like, yeah, just go back to the drawing board. And so he insisted and he insisted. So in this chapter, they don't really drop whatever gem. They're kind of like, think about it. So it's like, what do you call it? Words fail me sometimes. A subconscious, a subliminal gem. If you read it, you'll find it. So you're just like, yeah, continue. And you're just like, this is what I want. This is what I have to have. So, and we know now that we do have V8s and they're so famous. Everybody raves about them. whatever. There's V12s, whatever. Are there V12s? I hope I'm right. So, something which people say, so it's impossible. I'll give another explanation, another example, like in modern day life. It's like how people also didn't take like stand-up comedians seriously. It was just like, oh yeah, you just go to the comedy club and it's just a good time. It's a good idea for a date night. And like you can see these guys are making like killings. They have like Netflix specials. They had HBO specials. They're doing all these things. And then like before, let's say maybe in school, they're like, oh, you're just going to end up being stupid. You can't ever make money. It's impossible you're just a class clown. It's impossible for you to do something like ever be successful. Same thing. Only this is more scholarly. This is more dope. This is more, it's to be taken more seriously because it's engineering. If you think about the other things like different architectural monuments, a lot of people had been discouraged from doing things like look at the Leaning Tower of Pisa, whatever, the pyramids. They're literally impossible to think that they could come into existence. But the thing is, like, if people didn't push past people telling them it can't be done, we wouldn't have these like marvelous things to enjoy. And that's the thing, you don't even just like, I've never seen the pyramids, I've never seen the Leaning Tower of Pisa, I've never driven in a V8, right? Okay, not true, I have right now, but like those things that were so impossible, those things that took like blood, sweat, tears, sleepless nights, whatever, the things that people were discouraged from doing or pursuing, once they ignored that noise and pursued them, they pushed the limits and they created things that are so enjoyable, like that are so inspiring to other people, to the world, So you never know, anybody telling you, oh, it's impossible for you to do this, to achieve this, or to be this, just dead the noise. You are the master of your fate. When Henley wrote the prophetic lines, I am the master of my fate, I am the captain of my soul, he should have informed us that we are masters of our fate, the captains of our souls, because we have the power to control our thoughts. Little by little, the truth has unfolded itself until it now appears certain that the principles described in this book holds the secret of mastery over our economic fate. We have the power to control our thoughts. This is a very controversial opinion. We have the power to control our thoughts, but sometimes our emotions mess with that. Like, that you have that famous meme of like the heart and the head, like battling it out. But the thing is, and even in the Bible it says, I'm paraphrasing, but then it's like someone who has no control of their thoughts is as if not more dangerous than no somebody who has no control over their thoughts or emotions are as dangerous as a city with a broken wall or something like that. So it is important to learn how to control your thoughts. Like, there are things that you need to work on, and these are things that I need to work on personally myself as well. It's like telling myself, okay, I can't wake up at 4 a.m. in the morning to come and do this podcast. I totally can. but I have to talk myself into it. And the more I talk myself into it, the more I practice this habit, the more it becomes like something that becomes actualized into a reality. It becomes me waking up every day at 4 a.m. because I have I've told myself, hey, you can do this. And then I end up doing it. And you can do this, and I must do it. So that's just like a basic example. Another one can be your anger. I like there's this podcast that I was listening to. It's called The Diary of a CEO, and they had a guest speaker called Mo Gaudat. I hope I am saying his name right, but he was just talking about, you should watch it. It was about happiness. I've forgotten the title, but basically it was like talking about how we have control of our thoughts and control of our happiness. We just have to change the way we think about things. Like they were giving an example of how even being angry about a situation is completely a choice. But then a lot of people say, oh, I don't have a choice in being angry. But the thing is, like, basically what they were saying is that they had decided to look at something and say, okay, this has happened, and I have decided that because this has happened, I am going to be angry, therefore I am angry. And they said that once they had actually said that out loud, their audience viewership, a lot of people were just like not with it. And that's just like a higher or a deeper explanation or understanding of the whole idea of controlling your thoughts. So that is like a real mind-bending statement. You can just gloss over it, but when you meditate and you think about these things deeply, trust, they are gems. And it's like once you start changing these habits, changing your outlook on life and the outlook on yourself and how you deal with things, I think that changes life dramatically. I'm still a work in progress, and it doesn't have to happen overnight, but then these little changes every day have a compounding effect long term, I think. Principles that can change your destiny. I think this is the final subtitle. Yay, congrats. Thanks for sticking with me. So they say, now we're ready to examine the first of these principles. Maintain a spirit of open-mindedness, and remember as you read, they are the invention of no one man. The principles have worked for many men. You can put them to work for your own enduring benefit. You will find it easy, not hard to do. So that's how it kind of ends. It kind of ends on the note that, oh, hey, I told you all of this. I gave you all these examples, but guess what? We barely scratched the surface. But we're going to dive into the principles now from this point onwards, like in a more clear, open way. But I found that kind of cheeky because he had been dropping principles all the while as we were reading the first chapter. What I can say is that this podcast, by the way, is not a substitute for you to say, oh, I read the book. No, definitely read the book. The book club, the whole point is just me expressing the things that I found along the way that I found interesting to me and the ideas that I had behind them. Some of them I've not fully expressed just because of time. I don't want this to be like super long, super boring. And I want it to be fun for everybody, but I can't. What matters to me doesn't mean what I haven't covered doesn't matter at all, or doesn't matter to you, or should matter to you. Hope that makes sense. But yes, we have reached the end of the first chapter. I have enjoyed making this. I hope it starts a conversation within yourself, with yourself and other people, with yourself and myself. Hopefully I have the time to have a conversation with you. I would really love to engage in it, and I would love to learn a lot from you guys. What I want to know is, like, what are the lessons that you learned from this first chapter? What were things that I have covered? What things that I've covered have touched you, have impacted you? What fun stories do you have to tell? What not so fun stories do you have to tell about your business, about your personal life, about your upbringing that can help change your mindset, that can help inspire other people? What haven't I covered that you would wish that I had covered, and that you can hopefully cover for me? In the comment section. Feel free, by the way, to make response videos about the book. It's not, by the way, I want to say something. It's not about me. This whole thing is not about me. It's about books. It's about our love of books. It's about growing and learning new genres. It's about how the books inspire us. It's not about like my individual self and trying to glorify myself. I'm not an expert in anything. I'm just a human being trying to go through life and learning for myself, learning through others, and learning from my experience. So that's the whole purpose, that's the whole spirit of this channel, learning and books. I have my own private life. I do whatever I want to do in my own private life, and I live for myself and nobody else. And that's why I keep my stuff private. But about the book, what did you love about it? I'm so eager, I'm so excited to hear from you guys. And even if I don't, I am just putting this out there, and I hope it can be a blessing to anyone, whether it's through me, or whether it's through this little community that we are going to create here, or whether it's going to be like from other communities that you will find elsewhere, be it on YouTube, be it in other like book clubs, like in-person book clubs. If this doesn't float your boat, I hope you can find something else that will float your boat, and hopefully you can also plug them for me so that I can expand like my community as well. So that has been a lovely, powerful hour for me here at Wellspring. Have a blessed day, have a blessed year, have a blessed life.